All right, last video of the semester. So we're going to talk about delivery and breast milk, breastfeeding. All right, so here we go. We've got two objectives for each of these two things. All right, so it's time for a baby to be born. Mom's 36, 37, 38 weeks in, and it's time for the baby to be born. Well, how does this happen? Short answer is we don't really know. It could be that estrogen and progesterone concentrations are decreasing. Progesterone is likely involved, or a decrease in progesterone is likely involved since progesterone prevents uterine contractions. Oxytocin, which we've talked about a long time ago, causes uterine contractions, so maybe there's a release of oxytocin. And there might also be something released by the fetus that kind of stimulates some or all of these things, right? So ultimately, we're not sure. My guess is that there's got to be a trigger. There's got to be something that basically causes oxytocin to be released, whether that comes from mom or baby. Now, when it comes to labor, there are three primary phases, okay? And they're given names: first, second, and third stage. Okay, so the first stage is what we think of generally when a woman first starts, her water breaks, that sort of thing. All right, and so her cervix, and that's what we're talking about with dilation. Okay, cervix is going to dilate, and it's going to go from 0 centimeters until up to about 10 centimeters, which is about 2.5 inches. Okay, and so if you think about this, right, a baby when it's born, its head is relatively large. Okay, and it's got to come out of an opening that's usually, well, non-existent, right? And so, in order to help facilitate this, the cervix has to dilate. And so this is not easy. It takes time. And so at the beginning, we're getting from that 0 to 3 centimeters, or 0 to about an inch. And I think a minute ago I said 10 centimeters is 2.5 inches. 10 centimeters is 4 inches, so about the size of your fist. Okay, so the contractions don't occur very often. They're not as big. Okay, and then we go from early to active, where dilation is starting to occur. The contractions are occurring more quickly. And now we're at 3 to 7 centimeters. So we're getting 2 to 3 inches. And then this last phase of this first stage, contractions are occurring quite rapidly, pretty strong, and we're getting from that 7 to 10. Once a woman reaches 10 centimeters of dilation, they've reached that second stage, and this is the one where they have to do the big pushes and the breathing and all that. And this goes on from the time that they've reached that 10 centimeters until the baby is born. Once the baby is born, there's one final stage, which we mentioned last video, which is they've got to deliver the placenta as well. Now remember that labor is a positive feedback loop, okay? And how is this? Well, the cervix stretches, which is good because it's kind of causing that dilation, causes the release of oxytocin. Oxytocin causes uterine to contract more and increase the strength of those contractions, which causes the cervix to stretch, which causes the release of more oxytocin, so on and so forth. And this continues until the baby is born. And then we've got rid of that stimulus and the positive feedback loop goes away. Okay, so once a baby is born, well, the baby needs to be fed, right? And so obviously these days you can use breast milk, you can use formula, but let's just assume that woman's using breast milk. And so here we go. So mammary glands, they're basically fat tissue with milk ducts in them, okay? And so each milk gland is composed of 15 to 20 lobes. The lobes branch into lobules, and then the lobules terminate or end with what we call alveoli, okay? This is just to give you kind of a basic overview of how this looks, works, that sort of thing, but I'm not going to be asking you specific things about the anatomy of mammary glands, okay? And so we've got this super awesome flow chart here that kind of shows how this works. And so we've got oxytocin and we've got prolactin. So here's prolactin, here's oxytocin. All right, now oxytocin leads to milk ejection, okay? So the delivery of the milk. Prolactin is kind of with the production of the milk. Okay, so I think of prolactin as initiating the milk factories. Oxytocin is the milk delivery. Okay, what's interesting to know is that there's two stimuli for these hormones. okay, or for these responses. One, just hearing a baby cry, okay, and two, just the act of the baby suckling, okay, that's going to cause the release of milk. And these are also positive feedback loops. All right, so looking at this with words, all right, so as a girl goes through puberty, breasts grow due to estrogen and progesterone, but during this development, milk production is also inhibited. Okay, so this causes the increase in size. Prolactin causes the production of milk. Okay, and this increases during the end of pregnancy, and then oxytocin causes the release of milk. What's interesting is also that oxytocin causes uterine contractions. So I'm going to end with a story. Okay, so my daughter Ellie, who lives in LA, she's 15. I remember the day or the evening that we brought her home. My then wife was breastfeeding her, and she had tears just kind of streaming down her face. And I'm like, oh, she's having a moment. Like, this is so sweet. And I go, oh, are you just so happy to be a mom? And she goes, no, this hurts. And I go, oh, is like Ellie like biting down on your nipple? And she goes, no, I'm having uterine contractions. I don't think she said it that way, but that's what was going on. I had no idea that this was a thing. My mom is a labor and delivery nurse, was a labor and delivery nurse, taught me many things about this whole stuff. That was one thing she hadn't taught me. Okay, and so I didn't know that when a woman breastfeeds, it also causes uterine contractions. So especially at the beginning, breastfeeding can be very painful for women, not because something's gnawing down on their nipple, but just because the uterus is contracting, going back down to its original size. And so with that story, that is how we're going to end the reproductive system and PE 220 for the fall 2021 semester.